Hello, beautiful. I'm your host, Nicole Goff. Welcome to the Ecstatic Life Podcast, the podcast for women who want it all: health, wealth, freedom, authenticity, love, beauty, all of the hidden gems just waiting to be uncovered. This is the podcast for women who are ready to discover their inner creatrix, to discover their inner manifester, and who want to find the ecstatic in every day. Hello, my ecstatic lifers. In today's episode, I sit down with Kelly Love, a body language reading expert, and she teaches us how learning the language of the body can make your life more ecstatic. This is a raw and vulnerable conversation about moving through trauma and into your fully embodied self. Kelly gives a ton of practical advice on learning the language of your body so that you can hear the infinitely wise messages it is trying to send you. As happens with 90% of my remote recordings, I lose internet connection towards the end of my recording, and my video quality drops off for the last 10 minutes. So I have been testing out other recording locations with more reliable internet. So in future videos, you may see me in some random places with random background as I try to solve this problem for you guys. So before we get into this episode, I want to give a shout out to my very first Patreon subscriber, Shelby. If you also are interested in supporting the show, please head over to patreon.com/Nicole Goff Speaks to join my $5 a month membership, where you will get bonus content that is too hot for the mainstream. And you can also ask me questions that I will answer on these podcasts. So head on over to patreon.com and enjoy this episode. Let's get into it. Hi, and welcome back to the Ecstatic Life Podcast. I am here today with my friend Kelly Love, and we are here to talk about how learning the language of the body can make your life more ecstatic. So Kelly specializes in somatic embodied healing, integrative trauma release, Reiki, somatic, psychosomatic therapy, and body language reading. She is the creator of So Much Love, a subconscious reprogramming journey. And she is the host of the Raw Love podcast, which I have had the pleasure of being on 2 times. Welcome, Kelly. I'm so glad to have you here.
Thank you. Yes, and I love your episodes too. Oh my gosh. And the way they came out with the series I'm doing right now on family, it was so perfect. And I didn't plan it like that. Sometimes I look back at the orchestration of life and I'm so fascinated with it. It's like, speaking of an ecstatic life, once I learned how to tune into the language of my body, it's sort of like following the rhythm of a symphony. And then when things come to fruition, you're like, oh, of course, that's what we were leading up to.
Yep. Yeah. Trusting in the divine. I have been a very controlling person in my life in a lot of ways. And so the practice of surrender and release and to trust in the divine nature of life and how it will unfold perfectly has been a very challenging practice for me. But I do find that when you allow it to unfold the way that it is supposed to and intended by a higher power to, it unfolds more perfectly than when you try to nitpick it and micromanage it.
Yeah. And it turns out everything is perfect, even all the mistakes, right? I've been kind of chuckling at my mistakes over the past, I don't know, a while. It's been a few weeks and just kind of chuckling. Oh, that's why I'm using that now. Oh, that's why I joined a sex cult. Yep. I needed to learn that.
Exactly. They end up being our best lessons. So those things that in the moment feel so difficult and so challenging and, like you just want to get away from, escape, or work through as quickly as you can, they end up being those lessons that carry you on through the rest of your life that you then go transmute into teaching others and helping others and healing. So they are blessings in disguise. So I wanted to start off. We're going to talk about learning the language of the body, but I wanted to start off, speaking of very difficult lessons, with your early life. So, if you could give us a little backstory for the audience, you had a traumatic start to life, and how that really shaped your journey, and how that shaped what you're teaching people these days.
Yeah, we're going straight for the jugular. This is a trigger warning for those that are going to listen to this show. It is going to involve SA. Um, let's see. My early life, what I remember, was very chaotic. My mother experienced bipolar, so every day was like a roller coaster. I didn't know if she was going to be up or down, and if she was going to be loving or angry. Most of the time it was a lot of anger, and so I lived in a state of constant vigilance. And on top of that, I had a stepdad who was very harsh. And looking back, I mean, as a child, when I'm experiencing this, I'm really confused because I consider myself like a loving being, right? As children, we only understand love, like we come in programmed with love. And so deep down, I felt myself as like this beautiful, loving girl. And what was being reflected towards me from my parents was a lot of anger and hatred. And so I internalized a lot of that and reflected a lot of that back. And in many ways, I embodied what my parents did. And so, gosh, I was just writing about this today about how when I was in my teens, I'm not exactly sure what age, kind of all blurs together, but I was very emotional. I had been through, I must have been like 12 or 13. I'm not sure, but I had been through a lot already. Uh, we had been molested by a Sunday school teacher, and then my parents didn't remove us from the church. Um, the church didn't remove him. They just said he couldn't be with children, but I had to see that man every single week. And yeah, it was terrible. And then living in a home where my parents are yelling and screaming and abusing us every single day, I had a lot of anger inside and anxiety, and I was very emotional. So my parents put me into therapy, and this was their way of making my reaction to their toxic environment wrong. Like something's wrong with my daughter, fix her. And my mother had been diagnosed with bipolar, or maybe it was depression at the time. And I remember her saying, the doctor told me three out of five of my children are going to have a mental health issue because I had one. And I'm just thinking, oh my God. So they throw me in therapy and they put me on medication because my mom's on medication and, that's going to fix Kelly. Meanwhile, I'm in therapy, crying my eyes out every week. I can barely even get words out because that is how overwhelmed I am with my life. And they just put me on medicine like that's going to fix the situation. Well, obviously the medicine didn't work. I ended up throwing those down the drain, down the toilet actually, and just bawling my eyes out and feeling really at a loss because underneath all this anger and violence, like I turned into a violent person as well, I still felt that pureness in me that was like, I hate doing this. I hate being like this. I would love to experience a loving and peaceful environment, but it just wasn't modeled to me and I didn't understand. And, as I grew, we ended up finding out that we were adopted and by my stepdad. So we had a biological dad. Yeah. I was like 12 years old when I found this out. And the only thing that we were told was that he did some bad things to us and he lost custody. And, I'm 12 years old. I'm not researching like what happened to me. So I carry on in life. But what's interesting is I had a lot of behavioral issues. I didn't have good sexual boundaries. I hate that saying, I lost my virginity. I decided to have sex at a very young age. And then from there, it just like Pandora's box was opened, and I slept with a lot of people as a young girl. I was partying like every day, high and drunk, like from the time I was 16 on, maybe even 15. If I'm honest, I started experimenting in fourth grade. What am I saying? But really getting heavy with it, like around 15 or 16 years old. Just a lot of numbing, right? A lot of running. And then when I was about 20 years old, I moved away. I moved across country to California. I always had a dream to live in California. And that was the first time that I experienced space from the chaos and began to experience a different reality. And shortly after moving to California, my other sister moved out there, and she was a private investigator and also a paralegal. And she was curious, like, who's our dad? Who's our biological dad? So she did some research, found him. And when she found him, she discovered investigative paperwork that detailed his rape of me and my sister, my older sister. And I was 6 months old at the time of this investigation, at the time of the final, when the papers were stamped. So this investigation started before I was 6 months old. And, I was still very much do you want me to pause it all, or do you want me to keep going?
Keep going.
So I was okay. I was still very much in cognitive dissonance about what had happened to me, even though I had been molested by a Sunday school teacher. I said, well, there wasn't penetration, so it really wasn't sexual assault. And then with my biological father, even though I read what happened, I said, I don't have a memory of it, so therefore it's not that bad. Like having no clue about subconscious programming. And I went years in this dissociative state, and doing a lot to earn love. I was in a very religious state at that point, trying to like get in the good graces of God. And then about 7 years living in California, I ended up getting pregnant. And man, I was not ready for that. I was a child having a child. Like the neocortex isn't even developed till 27 if there's no trauma. So I'm 26. I've been living in cognitive dissonance my whole life. Like I'm a child having a child. And she was born very sick. She had a chromosome disorder and ended up dying in my arms at home at 57 days old. And looking back now, I can see that her frail body, the way she was born, it was a manifestation of what I was experiencing. That took me many years to be able to face that. And so I went into a really, really dark place because my older sister had 4 children and she was a terrible mother, lost custody of all of them, put them through the most horrific abuse. And I'm like, here I am changing my whole life and giving my daughter the best that's available, and you kill my daughter. Like I was bitter. And
Bitter with God.
bitter with God, bitter with life. It just felt so unfair. And I was lost for several years, and I was looking, I studied several religions, and I was looking for love, like show me where love is, because I knew that was the compass. And I went back to the Christian cult for a while, and for a while it served me. Like I'm glad I spent all those years in there that I did. I learned a lot about what Christ taught, and now I really understand what he taught. But while I was in this church, I realized like this isn't it. Like no matter what I do, it's never good enough, and I'm always at war with my nature. And like there's got to be a way for my nature to merge. And there was also just a lot in the Bible that didn't make sense. And the dude honestly sounded like a psychopath, like a schizophrenic psychopath. And I'm like, look, Jesus makes a lot of sense, but the rest of whoever this God is really fucked up in the head. And so
It's been
I left.
adulterated.
Yeah, for sure.
The
It's been
Bible has been
adulterated.
so adulterated. Yeah. So it's, yeah. Any good messaging that is in there, has been parsed in a way that those who are in power have made it benefit them instead of giving the true message.
And they hide the divine feminine. And that's what was always missing for me. Like I remember being in the church and them telling me, you need to submit to a man. I'm like, I've never met a man that's smarter than me, more sensitive than me, more capable than me. Like maybe he might be stronger, but what is he going to give me that I can't do for myself? Even at a young age, I felt that. So, I parted ways with the church, and this was like a permanent departure. And I went into the mystery, and I started exploring with sexuality and spirituality. And I inadvertently joined a sex cult for a while, for like 3 years. And dated one of their lead facilitators almost the entire time in an open relationship. And so I got to see a lot behind the scenes. And it's interesting that that's what I got attracted to, because once I started becoming more fluent in body language, I realized like that was a mirror reflection of what had happened to me, what I had lived through. And and as I started doing more healing, I started realizing like these practices don't really make sense. I mean, in the beginning, they groomed us like sexual predators, and stirring up a lot of emotions and creating bonds through sexual energy and sexual practices. And like at one point, even and I'm not going to say this, I don't want to get flagged, but censor. And I was just like, this isn't making sense. And I started detaching more. And then the final straw was when my partner started sleeping with people that had taken the thing, and I was like, what? We had an agreement. Like, so
yeah,
I went into this, it's a no-go. And I went into, I'm on 5 years of celibacy. I went into a period of celibacy because I was scared to have sex. But in that period, I mean, it was so divinely orchestrated, because that was when I finally started feeling all of the sexual dysfunction that I had been operating from based on what I had lived through. And I remember having this moment in Tulum, and this was like right around the time where I was going to end things with this guy that I was dating and move to another country. And I had this visceral flashback of being molested by my stepdad. And I had never considered him, although, I always thought it was interesting that I had some siblings that had an incestual relationship. And I always asked myself, how did that happen if Wayne was the perpetrator? Wayne's my biological dad. And that's when I was like, oh, that's why. And so my soul said, it's time to do the deeper dive with the sexual healing. I mean, the whole left side of my body had become dissociated. I needed a hip replacement. I'd already had it replaced. I had lots of digestion issues, from parasites to bacteria to diarrhea. And I said, I'm so scared. Like, I don't want to remember. I don't want to see what happened to me. Like, if you can show me how to heal without remembering, I'll do the work. And that's what body language is for me. It's being able to see in the dark when our mind has decided to protect us from details that could shatter our psyche. We still have enough of a reflection in the body to see where the trauma is, get an idea of what it is, and how to heal that and restore ourselves. So that's the journey I went on.
Yeah, so you were actually in the seminary, right? Like you were training to have a career in Christianity, and you were at the same time you were in the corporate world, I read. So what was your turning point?
I want to do a little bit of a. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I wasn't a student. I had actually applied and been accepted to Fuller Theological Seminary. And then the day before I was supposed to sign up for my classes, I got my collarbone broken while I was in Indonesia. And that was my turning point where, I had been Actually, I think this is going to answer your question, even though I didn't hear the full question. Say the full question. Sorry.
That was the question. Yeah. So what was this turning point? What was the catalyst?
So the catalyst was I was already accepted to seminary, and all I had to do was sign up for my classes. And I had been experiencing anxiety for a while. I would wake up with heart palpitations, panic attacks. And at the same time, I would hear God speaking the most beautiful things to me. Like I'd wake up hearing beautiful things being spoken over me, and I would just cry because it was so beautiful. And I don't remember what it was, but I knew it was holy. And I was so confused. I'm like, what is happening? So I booked a trip to Bali in Thailand, and I was going to go travel for 2 weeks with my brother who experiences schizophrenia. Not a good idea. And within 24 hours of getting there, I broke my collarbone. Just a freak accident. The paddleboard I was rinsing off just caught a gentle wave and shot it right here. You can see my metal plate. And I like, it was so chaotic, but at the same time, I had this peace, and I was like, what is this? I have my brother who's like freaking out over here. They want $10,000 cash. I got bones sticking out of me. I'm wrapped in an ace bandage, and they won't even give me painkillers. Right. And I'm like peaceful. I'm like, what is happening? And I realized like I felt peace because I knew I wasn't going to be able to sign up for my classes. The very next day was the day that it was the first day to sign up for classes. I brought my laptop with me to do it, and I couldn't do it. And I said, whoa, okay. I one-handedly emailed my church, and I was the worship producer at that time, and told them, look, y'all, I love Jesus, but I can't stomach the rest of this. I don't know what I'm doing, but this is not my path. I'm going into the mystery. And a few months later, I did my Eat, Pray, Love journey. I moved to Europe and began to rediscover myself.
Wow. So it took a broken collarbone. It took that amount
and
of
a hip replacement. Yeah, that amount of shaking me. Like, did you get the point yet?
Yes. Yeah. Our bodies are amazing though, because that was your body telling you stop. And I've had my own experiences with those kinds of things. Sometimes your body has to throw you down, literally on the ground or in bed, or in a hospital, and say stop, listen, get in touch. So from there, okay, so you're in Bali, you're done with seminary, you're not going back to do this education. And now, when did you discover your body? I mean, your website is Kelly Love Rewilding. So when did this journey of rewilding begin? And also maybe for the audience, give a definition of what rewilding means to you.
Great question. So rewilding for me is coming back to our nature. How do we function naturally? And coming back to my body was quite the process, because obviously there was a lot of traumatization and dissociation and brainwashing. I was raised believing that my body was evil, that my heart was deceitfully wicked, that I can't trust myself, and I'm born a sinner. The programming to set us up for failure is massive. And so, I moved to Europe, and I started my Eat, Pray, Love journey. And I hear that a lot of people go through this where they just start exploring life. And I knew one thing: I loved salsa dancing. And so I moved to Europe with the intention of going to as many salsa festivals in as many countries as I could. And I did. I went to so many. I had so much fun. I lived in several different countries. And at the end of it, I was like, something's missing. Like, I need something more. And I was still looking for that way to merge my sacred nature, my sexual nature. And I had started exploring sexuality. I was in an open relationship. And towards the end of my year in Europe, I heard about this organization called the International School of Temple Arts, which is a sex cult. I did not know it was a sex cult when I found it. But
It's
I
an
decided,
innocuous name.
and they call themselves a spiritual sexual shamanic initiation. So they make it sound like it's spiritual, right? And they lead with a lot of really good grooming. They're the valuable things I learned from that organization is a lot of embodiment tools and different practices. However, what I also learned was how to re-traumatize and trauma bond and do sex magic and dark magic. Like that's what that was about. So I started coming into my body, and I took several trainings with them. I also booked like a private healing training for myself with this couple, and we would do like 4-hour sessions a day. And I went so deep, like all the embodiment tools that I learned from ISTA, I brought into that healing session. And I really felt some liberation. Like after all of these experiences, I really did feel a lot of emotional liberation and started feeling like safe to feel. And, something other than anger. And then along this path, I discovered body language. I met somebody that pointed out a couple things in my body. And I was like, how did you know that about me? But I wasn't really ready for that deep reflection. And so I continued on the sex cult path and taking trainings with them. And then towards the end of that, I needed to get a hip replacement. Like my hip had so thoroughly deteriorated that I could not do anything on it. And so I thought, maybe this was a good time to do a discovery call with body language and see if they have the answers to what's going on with my hip. And sure as shit.
How old were you? How old were you at that time? Was the
38.
Was the hip replacement? So to be in that state of degeneration in a body part like that, was that, do you think, as a result of the sexual trauma? Were you storing the sexual trauma in that area?
Yeah, and my hip replacement is what got me into the work that I do and understanding the roots of it. So she did a quick discovery.
The messaging.
Yes, with the messaging. So we did a discovery call, and we just looked up, a hip replacement and the left clavicle repair, which they're both on the left side. And they were right on. I was like, I don't know what this is, but I need to learn it because it is accurate. And so what is this? And that really began my love affair with the work that I do. And I started with the online program. And as soon as I could walk, I was in Costa Rica training, and I've trained all the way up to teacher level and ran teacher trainings. And in that process, I did discover that my hip replacement was a direct result of the sexual trauma that I went through. And it's interesting because that was my second hip surgery. I had a orthoscopic hip surgery 7 years prior. And this was before I was aware of anything other than Christianity. So I wasn't really into the body, And I asked my doctor, I'm like, why did I need this? Like, why is my hip messed up? I'm 30 years old. And he goes, well, at some point you received a trauma, and that ended up compromising the blood supply to your leg bone and, tearing it up in there and it, starting to die. And I was like, what? And so I just like innocently asked myself, what happened to me? And my soul said right away, it's from the childhood sexual trauma. But I was like still in cognitive dissonance, and I ignored it. And that's why, 7 years later, because I hadn't shifted anything in my life, and it certainly hadn't shifted how I used my body, the issue exacerbated to the point of needing a hip replacement. And then on my journey, discovering deeply every part that contributed to that.
Yeah. Wow. Wow. Yeah. And our body is so wise. I mean, if we are able to listen, if we are able to hear it, but it's so hard when we're living in trauma, when you're actively in trauma and when you're actively dissociating, the feeling of needing to flee the body, to escape the body is so strong that any of those symptoms or any of those messages that we're receiving, it's just so much easier to block them down or to not trust them because we can't trust. So yeah, I mean, it's amazing that you were able to come through that and to find that connection again with yourself, with your body, your soul and your body together. Wow. So yeah, I just would like to say, I really applaud you. I mean, it's very, very harrowing. And thank you for sharing that. It's very, very deep and vulnerable. So, whew. So this was salsa your first experience with somatic healing? Was that kind of your first? Because I had a similar experience with contra dancing. I became obsessed with contra dancing before I understood somatic work. And so for me, I was chasing this thing that I didn't understand, but there was something in it that was so healing. So for you, was your first taste of that with the salsa dancing?
I've been pretty tactile my whole life. I was in choir, I played the trumpet, I was in drama, I did sports as well. And then, I was always fascinated with foreign cultures. So for a while I would do samba or faja, capoeira, even for a while, snowboarding. But salsa was like that thing that really pushed me out of my comfort zone. Like I'd always wanted to be a really good hip hop dancer or Latin dancer. And I loved like the I hate calling them Latin cultures because that gives credit to Europe, right? What would we call them? I love the Central and South American cultures. And the vibrancy, like how alive they are. And my friends invited me out to a club one night and I went and I was nervous as hell. So I had a double gin and tonic and I soon realized what liquor can do on a dance floor. And I started going like 6 nights a week and it became an obsession to the point where I didn't want to drink anymore. I wanted to be completely sober. And what I learned in the salsa was this dance between the masculine and feminine. It was my first taste of understanding like the whole point of the man leading the dance is to showcase the woman, to showcase her beauty, show her off, do some fun tricks with her. And that's the dance of life. It's how can we support the move and the expression of the feminine?
Yes, and not what you originally learned, which was that the woman is there to be the doormat, right?
The helper.
To be under and supporting her man. If you have been watching my podcasts, you have no doubt been seeing me using my copper water bottle. I literally use this thing every day and I take it everywhere with me. Not only does it keep my water clean and tasting delicious, but it imparts health benefits and is another one of my daily habits that I truly feel has contributed so much to my health and living my most ecstatic life. Since I was already advertising their bottle every week, I reached out to Copper Water and asked them to offer a discount code for my Ecstatic Life listeners. So, if you're interested in learning about the benefits of drinking from a copper vessel, head over to copperwater.com/Nicole Goff and use the coupon code Nicole Goff at checkout for 5% off of your order if you decide to purchase one. Now, back to Ecstatic Life. So, these somatic healing modalities, and for me, one of the biggest ones has actually been dance. So ecstatic dance has been so healing for me. They really speak to our primal brain. So they're really bypassing the logic. And I think that's why they can work on a level that is, unconsciously work on a level that we aren't aware of. So even though, both of us were going through these dances that were healing for us, we weren't aware of what was happening. And I think this is one of the limitations of talk therapy, and I know you'd agree with that it's so focused up here in our, prefrontal cortex, and it doesn't have the ability to get into the body to solve these problems from a deep core level. It's just up here surface level, and you'll just keep spinning around and around and around. So I like how you say that body language is a love language from the soul, that the body's inherent sacred language is the body language. So I think that's really beautiful. And I would like to know more about that. And I would also like to kind of transition to what you're doing now. So on the other side of this healing journey, what you've learned, how you're bringing these practices to other women and helping other women on their healing journey.
Yes. So repeat the first question.
So the body language is
Oh,
a
the love
love
language. Yes.
Yes. Yeah. Can you tell me a little more about that?
Oh, yes, I can. This is my favorite topic to talk about because, as you're aware, I did not feel loved growing up. My parents did not love me. Much later in life, I accepted that they were narcissistic psychopaths. Like they had been so severely abused and damaged that their brain had turned into a psychopathic brain that took pleasure out of harming us. And so that was really confusing to be treated in an unloving way my whole life. And then, then feeling like my body was betraying me as it was beginning to break down. And when I discovered body language, I realized that all of these aches and pains are because I didn't know how to hear the messages before, or I wasn't allowed to hear the messages before. And when I began to read my story, so I did my first training, and one of the things that they have us do is do a full body mind analysis on ourselves. And as I'm doing it, I'm like, all methodical, left brain about it, and analytical. And then we have to go back and assess the patterns and give ourselves some suggestions. And then when I went back to go read it without analyzing it, I was like, oh my gosh, this is the saddest story I've ever read. And it was the moment that I was able to have compassion for myself. Like I finally validated everything that I'd ever felt my entire life. It was on my body. I couldn't deny it anymore. My body said, yeah, it really did suck. And this really is how it felt. And that gave me the courage to start facing myself and get really curious about how all of the experiences I had impacted me. And that meant mentally, emotionally, behaviorally, physically. I had lots of physical issues. And through the map of the body language, so in body language, we understand what alignment is. Like physical alignment gives emotional alignment. Emotional alignment cultivates physical alignment. It's a two-way feedback system. And the body language is always attuned to love. What is going to nourish me to full growth, right? We can't say that I love gardening and then never nourish our garden. You'd be like, no, you don't. However you spend your time, that's really what you love. And so when it comes to ourselves, it's looking at what does it take to actually love ourselves and grow ourselves. And for those of us who grew up in an unloving home, we don't have someone to reflect that back to us. And so I learned how to look at my own soul and understand what love is. And I like to say this is Goddess speaking through us. So for those of you that are, come from the Christian background, this is what Christianity hid from us. So they have God the Father, God the Son, and God the Holy Spirit. Well, the Holy Spirit is the divine feminine, and in body language, this is what was so profound for me and why I was so grateful that I learned so much about Christianity, because then I could see the truth. In the body, the masculine energy represents the ego, the self that is informed by the soul. Like how aware are we of our true self? That's our ego. And it's about taking direction from the soul. So the masculine energy is here to take direction from the soul energy. And the soul energy is sensing, feeling, intuiting, cultivating, growing. And when I tapped into that, I was like, oh my gosh, that's what Yeshua was talking about. Like God has given us the Holy Spirit. Like we all come from God. It's not just like you're born a human and then if you do the right thing, you get to have the Spirit of God. We all came from the same God. Like how can I be anything but the substance that God is? And that's when I really understood that, oh my gosh, it even brought me back to the Old Testament where it says, do not eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. It's actually the tree of the knowledge of what feels good and what doesn't feel good. And that is what body language is. So even in the creation story, they were deceiving us and telling us that feeling what is good and feeling what is bad is not good to listen to. But that is the consciousness of God speaking through us. Yes, this is going to give you life. No, this isn't going to give you life. Yes, this feels like you. No, this isn't you. And so I realized like this is the whisper of God. That verse that I grew up with as a child, like I would always be like, I want to be like that person that can hear God whisper. And I listen. And that is what body language is. It's the whispers of Creator saying, I love you. Can you love yourself like this? Can you accept yourself more?
Wow. That's really beautiful. Yeah. I want to say it again. The body's inherent sacred language. When I read that, I was like,
Yes.
ooh, like God bumps, goosebumps, you know?
And that's the beauty is
okay.
It's universal. It doesn't matter where you are in the world. It's the same language because it's the same God.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. So, speaking of language, I was curious about something. You say you like to do language upgrades to replace common phrases and words as part of your body language training. So, could you go into that a little more? I mean, is this the stories we are telling ourselves, or is this more like colloquialisms?
Both. So, it's going to be like one language upgrade I can give you is the word KNOW. So when our body hears it, it hears the word NO. So every time I say, oh yeah, I know, it's a way to dismiss yourself or invalidate what you're saying. And if you feel into it, anytime you're telling someone a story and you're excited about it and they respond with, oh yeah, I know. It's like, shut up. I already know. It's like, no. I already have the answers, right? So what we can do instead of a phrase that is invalidating what we're saying, we can say things that are actually stating what we're doing, like, I understand, I feel that, I see that, I sense that. So that's bringing the felt senses alive. And then another language upgrade I like to do, this gets more into the nuances of how we speak about ourselves, the truth that we say about ourselves. So in body language, all of our muscle types have a different emotional meaning to them, our muscle and tissue type. So one of the examples I like to use is like when people do skinny shaming or fat shaming. I'll do skinny shaming because I'm skinny, and then I'll do fat shaming. So a way to change the languaging around I'm so skinny or I can't gain weight. You know, that's a story I tell myself for a long time. I can't gain weight. I'm just so skinny. When the truth is, I was running. I was in a state of fight and flight and freeze for many years. And so speaking more truthfully about ourselves, instead of saying I'm skinny, say the truth. I have been afraid for a long time. I've been on the run, not only from danger, but from feeling the danger around me. And it's exhausting me. And this is why I can't put on weight, because I'm in a state of exhaustion from constantly running. So when we say the truth of what we're actually experiencing, and therein lies the medicine. So if we're running and we're exhausted, then the invitation is, what kind of safety do I need to create to be able to slow down and feel this? And, you know, I thank the lucky stars or the universe that once I started healing, because I had a lot to heal from. It's not a typical trauma story. It's a psychopathic narcissistic story. I didn't work. I barely worked. I was forming my business, but the way the universe had it is I learned by healing. I learned everything I do by healing myself and having that space to really integrate it. How does that feel?
Yeah. Well, I realize I don't think I have gotten a full definition of the work that you do with body language. And I want to backtrack for a second. And so I know, because I've been following you for a while and following your work and been a part of one of your courses. But for those that are just listening, could you give us just an overview of what you do with body language, how you define what you're doing, how it's therapeutic?
Yes. So we'll start with the more like analytical aspect of it, like what are the roots of it. So it's based in ancient tantric sciences. It's not sex sciences, okay, for those of you that are listening. What Tantra is, real Tantra, is this is the flow of energy in our body. It's our creative life force energy. So even though it can be expressed sexually, that is not all that it is. It's what actually brings us to life and animates us to life. And so body language is reading how connected to life are we? And how that shows is a few different ways. So body language, number one, we look at the structure of something to understand what its function is. So when we look at a box, we know you can put things inside of a box, or you can stack boxes, or you can stack blocks. You can create a structure with it or create a foundation, but you wouldn't play basketball with it, right? So body language shows what a structure is best at performing. And it's really getting into the shapes of things: triangles, circles, squares, rectangles, and understanding what that means energetically. From there, we're building on that structure. So we have the frame of the house, and how that frame fills out, or how that flesh fills out on that frame, shows us how we're filling our house. So how is my Holy Spirit fully filling this house and embodying myself? And so a few things that I can give you to land it in the body for body language. We're looking at how muscles feel. So are they tense? Are they soft? Are they dissociated? Is there a fatty layer? Is there a water weight layer? Like, what's going on in the tissue? Because each one of these tissues carries a different emotional message. That's what muscles are. They are emotional messengers. So how the muscles begin to form, then we go another layer out. We're going to look at the joints. How are the joints now responding to the muscle health? So if we have tight muscles that are tight, stretched out, and armored, this is going to be someone who's going to be armored and protected. Might be easy to topple them over, or easy for them to snap because they're so strung tight. And what that's going to do with their joint health, this is going to create stiffness, lack of mobility. We see this in a lot of bodybuilders. So then we're going to go a layer deeper than that. So we have the structure, we have how the structure is filling out with the muscles and the tissues, and then how the joints are responding to the muscles and the tissues. And then we're going to look at the specific body parts. So every single body part of the body connects to a chakra center, and a chakra center is responsible for various energies. We can get into that if you want. So then we're looking at the chakra center. So that's another layer of information. Is this body part in my root chakra? So this is going to be issues that are connected to safety, having your basic needs met, feeling loved and secure. Then if you were to go another layer deeper, it's what does this specific body part represent? So if it's my thighs, this is like where all of our emotional memories are tied to. And it's also what gives us the strength to step out into life. And it also holds up the entire top part of the body. So if the legs aren't strong, then we might see that the energy in the upper body is starting to be affected. It can't grow to its fullest because the energy in the roots and the trunk aren't healthy. So it's so multi-layered. I mean, it down to like every digit of every finger meaning something, every digit of the finger meaning something, all the parts on the face. It all means something. And so when we're tuning into what has shaped me, like quite literally shaped me, we read the emotional story, and then we can get curious about the details that created those emotions.
Yeah, I think that what most people, when they hear body language, think is like, looking at someone else's body language to see if there are telltale signs during communication. I mean, lying is a big one, if they're looking nervous or anxious or those kinds of things. But I don't think that many people, and I didn't so much until recently, look at themselves and turning it inward. And so, since knowing you, I've gotten really curious about a lot of things that I notice. I've been into yoga for a lot of years, and so I have been aware of body parts that hold energies connected to our chakras, these kinds of things. But there's more subtle things that I'm just kind of becoming aware of. I have right now, if you're a watcher, you can see there's a little eczema under my left eye. And so I've learned recently, because this is something that flared up when I started doing a cleanse at the beginning of the year, and it just won't go away. And I feel like great, but I'm like, what is with this? And I'm looking into it, from the body language perspective. And I have read that it can possibly be connected with separation conflict. And so I don't know if that's something that you would agree with, but that resonated with me because I had been experiencing some separation conflict. And so now I'm wondering, okay, so if it's not purely a physical thing, what do I need to do energetically? What do I need to do emotionally to, help this clear up? What am I missing? What is it trying to tell me that I'm not hearing,
Yes. So I want to give all of you a book that you can go buy. It's going to be one of your best friends. It's called Messages from the Body, Their Psychological Meaning. And you can look up all sorts of issues, health issues, broken bones, whatever. And it'll give you so much. So eczema is in here. If you buy the hard copy, I have the hard copy as well. There's like extra bonuses in the back of the book. So I think it's worth buying both. So oftentimes I start with looking at that, because when you have like a more severe reaction, this means it's been exacerbated. You haven't been listening. The body's got to give you a louder message. So what this book does is it takes it to the extreme. So that's clue number one. Then what I start doing is I start decoding where it is on my body. So skin issues are, this is our first barrier of protection. And it's connected to like our digestive tract too. Like, how are we digesting and how is our body able to protect us from the outside world? So it's intimately connected to digesting your emotions, not being able to digest your emotions, and your body is giving you a very clear outward sign that there's an issue. Then I go to, where is it? So for you, it's on your eye. I'm aware that eyes are connected to the heart chakra. So is it your left or your right?
Left.
Then I would determine, is it masculine or feminine? So the left side of the body is connected to that feminine energy. And then begin to ask myself, like, what am I irritated with? Like, where is my heart feeling an irritation with how I'm expressing myself emotionally? Or where am I feeling irritated by not being attended to emotionally? And now my eye is like, flared up. Maybe it wants to close because it doesn't want to look at what it's seeing right now. It's like that irritated. It wants to shut the eye. So what are you not wanting to see? These are just like questions you can start asking yourself, because what the psychosomatic discomfort is doing is it's creating a pain that is connected to an emotional pain. So asking questions like, what does it feel like? What does this eczema feel like?
It feels burny and irritated. It also feels embarrassing because it's like I've had a couple people, they're like, what's up? Did you get hit in the eye? Or, so there's some self-consciousness around it. And I don't get eczema anywhere else. I've never had a problem with eczema. So it's a weird thing to have happen for me.
Yeah. So asking yourself, like, burning is connected to anger. Itching is connected to irritation. It can also be connected to like feeling dried and stretched out, undernourished, dehydrated, if any of those words land. So we're just getting curious about the symptoms and asking the questions. And the more questions you ask, then your body's going to go, ding, 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 you got it. Look at this now. Look at this over here.
Yeah. So yeah, just tuning in. Yeah.
Or I could
Well, that
even
was
give you
cool.
an
Thanks.
example of something I'm tuning into with my back, if that's all right.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I'm in my 4-week body archetypes course right now, and I've just taught everyone the muscle, the joints, and how to read lines of energy flow, and also the map of the body. So their homework is to go home and get in touch with their body, feel their different body parts. What do the tissue feel like? What do the joints feel like? What are the possible emotions that are being held here? And so I've had this itch on my back for years, decades, really. It's decades. And no amount of itching makes it go away. And so today I just thought, what if I like dig my nails into my back? Like, what does that do? And I realized the itch is because the muscles are so tight. Like, and so I just started feeling like the consciousness. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is armoring. And because that's what the tight armored muscles feel. And the back of the body is, how you have your back, how you look out for yourself. And so with that tension being on the backside of my body's like, yes, you've carried a lot of fear. Your shoulders have been up in fear for a long time. Your collarbones are shaped funny. And what your body needs is fascia stretching, movements that are opening and expanding the upper body, breathing deeper. So you're filling up your chest and not putting all the weight right here. Like I've just been putting all the weight right here. So just simple things like that, decoding myself and being like, you know what, you're right. I have been stabbed in the back a lot. And also my journeys, my recent things that I've been really implementing is affirming myself, you know, having my own back, giving myself a pat on the back for how far I've made it, for what I've created with the life that I have and how good I am at it and how good my life feels right now. And also being very discerning about who I bring in my circle, because the reason why I re-traumatize myself is because my nervous system was so shot, I just kept attracting shitty people. But the more I healed, the healthier I attracted. And so my body's like, notice this, really be discerning about who you let in, because that's how your body relaxes and opens up. And that's how you're going to heal deeper.
Yeah. And so is this kind of a taste of what people would get if they were in your So Much Love course?
Oh yeah, this and so much more. This is like this and face reading are my two favorite courses. So much love. I feel like everyone needs to learn face reading, by the way. You can learn it in one day. You start practicing it right away. And we look at faces every day. So the face has all the chakras, body parts, masculine, feminine energy, the 3 major zones, mental, emotional, physical. I mean, you can tell so much about someone's character, personality, and behavior patterns just by looking at their face. Then when you move into learning the full body, you begin to see the matching themes between what's showing on the face and what's showing on the body. And that's what I do in my So Much Love group is I teach people how to read the body language from the feet to the head. And we go in that order because we start with our foundation and then we build our house and put our roof on last. And that goes in order of the chakras from the root chakra all the way to the crown chakra. So I'm literally teaching people how to embody their vessel. So how to listen to the messages and what to do when we hear the messages. So reprogramming our subconscious, like you said, it's not going to be done in talk therapy because where the trauma is in the primal part of the brain. It's not up here in our neocortex. We can't reason with it. It's the little kid that was never helped. And so I teach people how to use the body to heal the body, to do various practices that get you really to the root. And then I'm also teaching how to physically realign the body. So having my hip replacement, the gift of that was the biggest message I got from the hip was the way I was stepping out and creating life was the foundation was so thoroughly diseased that my body said, we need to start over. And that's what I did. When you heard me tell my story, it was all of the sexual dis-ease, all that dysfunction, being in a sex cult, being with a partner that didn't really love and respect me. And my body said, girl, we need to start over. So, so what this program is how to start over, how to build your house right. Because if you ain't going to build it on a solid foundation and right, then don't even bother trying because it will collapse. And so I'm teaching individuals really how to master their energy and become powerful creators, powerful leaders.
And to do that before your body gives you some really bad disease, some really big smack in the face, like broken collarbones, and, really throws you down and says, no, you aren't going to learn. If you can, empower yourself to get these tools, to start learning these tools before then, that's even better. And so you are doing free face readings on Wednesdays, right? On Instagram Live.
I do some version of live readings. So right now I'm going through the full body called the Tree of Life series. I'm not sure when this is coming out. So I just did chest and breast this week. Next week, I'm going to do shoulders. I was doing the face for a while. I'm not sure what my next series is going to be. I might do the face again. We'll see. Yes, I do free readings every Wednesday. I have my podcast with new teachers. I have a YouTube channel full of educational free videos. And I mean, I always have something cooking up my sleeve. So follow me on Instagram and you'll see how body language comes alive. And that's my focus right now, is picking a new theme every couple of weeks and showing people how you can apply this to your life. Because it's a gift that keeps giving. If you can see yourself clearly, you can see anyone clearly. And we're here, I believe, to create unity. That's the ultimate ascension, is unity. And that starts with connecting the divine masculine and feminine within. And that's what, the Christed consciousness is.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And it's impossible if we're not loving ourselves. I mean, going back to this being the love language of the soul, if we're not honoring and listening to and respecting and cherishing ourselves, then it is impossible to find that love with others and that respect, because it's a reflection, as we were saying. So we are at our hour, but I'm wondering, is there anything that you could give our audience here that they could do, like one simple tool that you could leave them with to help them to learn how body language can make their life more ecstatic?
Yeah. All right. So this is going to be easy for everyone. We want to make sure that we are stepping into life aligned. So I want everyone to check out their feet right now. Stand up, do a couple circles, and then look down at your feet and see how your feet are pointed. Okay, so how are your feet pointed?
Parallel. I mean, yeah, forward. Kind of typical mountain pose.
Are they pointing out at all? Are they close together? Are they?
No, parallel, both pointing straight forward, about 3 inches apart.
Okay, well, your feet are aligned. That is great. So if your feet are not aligned, if they happen to be going out like this, or maybe one foot is turning out, or maybe one foot is turning in, or both are turning in, the first thing that you can do to make sure that you are stepping out in a solid foundation is get your feet straight. And what you're doing is you're telling yourself, I am in alignment with my purpose and direction in life. I step in alignment with my purpose and direction in life. And if your feet are wonky right now, what's going to happen when you correct your posture is it's going to hurt. Muscles are going to be sore because they have to stretch and support the new position. So this is why body language can be cool too, because where your muscle is tight is where that consciousness is also uptight. It's also been dissociated for a while. So I I feel like one of the things that helped me be where I am today is when I was a young girl, like second or third grade, my crush made fun of me and said, "Why do you walk like a duck?" My feet were like this. Now, I know why my feet were like that now because my foundation was blown out from under me and I didn't have a leg to stand on. I felt totally unsupported. But because that little boy made fun of me, I put my feet on straight. And I tell you what, I had the strongest personality. I had the strongest sense of self out of all of my siblings and have really moved in the direction of my soul my whole life. And I attribute that to that little correction at that young age. So never think that one little correction can't make that big of a difference, right? You're 1 degree off on your ship, you're hundreds of miles off. So 1 degree off with your feet, you're off. You're not in alignment. So just that little tweak. And then ask yourself, if your feet are like this, where am I divided? Or if you're like this, why am I hiding? Why am I scared? Why am I insecure?
Yeah, and it's so cool how it goes both ways, you know. The shift in your body impacts. So even if you're unconscious of it as you were as a child, realigning your feet in that way shifted that inside of you, made you stronger. And so to be able to do that consciously is even more powerful. Yeah.
And that's what it is. That's what I realized I'm teaching. It's like every move we make, we are the creator. It's like every aligned move I make is like we're bringing the earth alive in real time.
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I could keep
Yes.
talking. And I know you said we're at an hour, so I'm going to.
Well, before we go, though, I know, and everybody needs to go back and listen to our other conversations. My 2 conversations on your podcast were just so powerful and so much fun. So yeah, I will link those in the show notes for sure. But I do want to say before we go, how can people connect with you? What do you have coming up? Any offerings that you want to share with anybody? I'll link everything in the show notes too.
Yes. You can find me in Kelly Love Rewilding, Instagram, YouTube, TikTok. That's my website as well, kellyloverewilding.com. My flagship program is my Soul Much Love program. This is my deepest dive. I have something starting February 22nd, but this might not come out before then. If you want to get on the wait list for the next one, please reach out to me. I do face reading as well. So you can take the online course, super affordable, $200. You can't even get an ayahuasca ceremony for $200. And you're going to use this every day of your life for the rest of your life. And if you want to book a private training, I do small groups, large groups. I can cater what and how I teach to your group's needs. If you want to learn body archetypes, like maybe you're not ready to jump all the way into So Much Love, you just kind of want to see what this is about. Body archetypes is an easy and affordable way to get some tangible ways to read body language and understand the basics of the 4 archetypes and how that affects behavior, emotional health, mental health, relational health. And if you want to get on my mailing list, go on my website. I have a free feminine leadership class. When you sign up for that, you can get on my mailing list and I share personal stories. I keep you updated on lives that I'm hosting. Like today, I'm hosting another live on trauma in the womb and birth trauma. So I'm always bringing something educational, some way to bring body language alive to you. So connect with me.
Yeah, and definitely on Instagram, Kelly is always putting out just so much good free content. If you want a taste of what she's doing, follow her on Instagram because she's always putting out great stuff. I love your updates. So
Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on my podcast. It was such an honor to host you this time. And I'm so glad we have become friends and I cannot wait to talk to you.
Me too. And I can't wait to collaborate. Whoop, whoop.
Yeah. Yeah. Keep an eye out, everybody. Thank you, Kelly.
Thank you.